Well, Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport are both reporting this morning that the Niners are have allowed Deebo to shop and his agent to shop for a trade. And now it's just a matter of, first of all, I've been talking about this for weeks that, that I thought Deebo was probably gone and that Ayuk is diminished and is probably going to miss at least half the year. And even in a year and the 49ers just went, receiver in the first round last year with Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah.
So I know nobody's wants to talk about receivers. Everybody wants to talk about offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and I get it. But the reality is that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch don't have a year to throw away. They don't have a year to be like, we'll just draft a receiver and we'll just see if it works out. And if it might take 2 years for him. No, they don't have that kind of time. It's go time for them. So in their go year, I think they're going to have to add wide receiver to the list of needs, and it's going to go at or near the top. And it's a rough thing because it's not a good wide receiver year. So it's not a great year to need a wide receiver in free agency. There's T. Higgins. Now, Mike Lombardi said that talk at the Senior Bowl was that the Niners might be a sleeper team for T. Higgins. And the more you look at it, the more it makes total sense because they want to be good next year. They're going to need a dynamic player. They're probably going to ask Brock to take a little bit less. If I'm Brock and his agent, I'm not taking a little bit less unless you're going to spend that extra money that you're saving on me on a T. Higgins or an offensive lineman or both. So then if you look closely at the draft, and I already have extensively when it comes to the receivers, and there aren't receivers. I mean, you're not going to be able to do this in the draft. I mean, I really doubt that highly. I mean, there's Tez Johnson from Oregon. He's a tiny little slot receiver. He's about 150 pounds. He's probably going to be a third-round pick. There's Trey Harris from Ole Miss, who's really special, and you could get him in the second round most likely. But if you don't get Trey Harris in the second round, man, then you're looking at day 3. And there's 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 guys that I really like on day 3. But day 3 wide receivers to have to play a significant role on a team that fashions itself as a Super Bowl contender. So, I looked at the free agent market at receiver a few weeks ago, and, I was thinking at the time, well, maybe like a Tutu Atwell or a Rondale Moore, somebody who can really run, and I still think those guys are viable. But they're not, that's not Ayuk. That's not Deebo. These are more complementary type players. Yeah. So, I don't know if it's trading for Devontae Adams, trading for Garrett Wilson, trading for Tyreek Hill, signing Darius Slayton, signing T. Higgins, or if they're going to go in the draft. But they, in addition to trading, Deebo Samuel, they need to get somebody because they won't be able to win the Super Bowl or even contend for the Super Bowl with just a day 3 receiver added to this mix or some secondary, speedster wide receiver added to this mix. They need a significant player at receiver. I think they are aware of that, and that's why I think the Higgins rumors are coming from.
Well, on top of that, I was also talking about what you had posted about him selling his house in the Bay Area. I mean, that's huge news. Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's selling his house in the Bay Area tells me that he's already 1 foot out the door, that he's already expecting on possibly going somewhere else. But
yeah, I have a buddy who works in real estate who called me 3 weeks ago and said Deebo's putting his home in Morgan Hill on the market, and looks like he's definitely selling his home, whether he's leaving or not. He's selling his home. But I got the feeling at the end of the year, the way he played in the Miami game, to me, spoke volumes. That was like, get me, Mike McDaniel, bring me here, bring me here, bring me here. It's like he's begging the Dolphins to sign him. He let it all hang out in that game, and I haven't seen him play like that with that kind of reckless abandon, that kind of speed, determination in quite a while. So, I mean, I'd have to go back to the Eagles game in Philly, the last time I really saw him cut it loose like that. So I would say look for the Dolphins.
Yeah. I mean, he played his ass off in that game, and he hadn't done that almost all year. So it was kind of like, wait, what's going on here on a game that didn't really matter to either team. So we talked about that.
Don't expect a lot back. Don't expect a lot back. I would say if you get more than a 5th round draft choice, I'd be shocked.
I mean, the main thing is saving the money on Deebo is what you would get in return. But no, you're not going to get a receiver, an impact receiver in return. Like you were saying, it'd be like a 5th round pick. God forbid a 4th round. I'd be like, oh my God. But you won't get a lot in return. But it'll free up cap space to go after a receiver like a T. Higgins, who at this point seems way more of the better choice than Deebo Samuel. Now, there was also talk about Davante Adams, that he was interested in coming back to the West Coast. What's your take on Davante Adams? Do you think that he would be an answer for our need at wide receiver?
See, I don't think he's an answer. Why? Because, the wide receiver core on any team at any level, but especially in pro football, they have to complement one another. So, you can't have 5 possession receivers, and you can't have, 5 burners that can't run routes. I mean, you have to have guys that complement one another. The Niners already have their short and intermediate route running, chain mover, continuity piece receivers, and that's what Davante is at this point in his career. He's not a super dynamic down the field guy. He's a back shoulder throw guy. He's everything within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. And I just don't. If you have Pearsall, you have JJ, they're not going anywhere. What you really need is Garrett Wilson. You need somebody who can run routes, but also run sub 4.4. You need somebody who can. I mean, Ayuk ran your deep routes, and you're not going to have him for the good portion of the year. And then after he comes back, who knows if he can even still run those routes? He had a major injury. So, to me, JJ is your possession guy. Cowing could be a little bit of a speedster, but I don't know. I don't even think I would really factor him in. I just, because he has strength deficiencies and he needs to get a lot stronger. But they need somebody who can run. They don't just need a receiver. They need a dynamic receiver that can run sub 4.4 or 4.4 flat. They got to have somebody who can really move. So I don't think Davante makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he, like you say, he is more of a short, a 10-yard kind of receiver.
He's older.
He's older. He's more of a diva as well, but he is a legitimate number one in the sense that the defense has to account for where he's at on the field. So you do get that. Baseman says Tyreek Hill. I know you had talked about that in the past. I think Tyreek Hill will be amazing. Unfortunately, you'd have to put up a huge trade package to even get that guy. But that would be something if they got Tyreek Hill to replace Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, and he just stated he doesn't want to go anywhere. I have people on my Twitter saying trade Deebo for George Pickens. I think the Steelers would love to move off of Pickens, but Pickens is a diva who doesn't block, and the Niners receivers, you have to block. It's a big part of their MO is their receivers block. So I mean,
does T. Higgins block? I mean, do we know if he's even a blocking type of receiver? And I haven't
big
seen
body.
much of him. He's a big body.
T. Higgins he's a 6'4" receiver. I'll say this: T. Higgins at the end of the year looked like a true number one. He was amazing. I mean, I had him on my fantasy team. I couldn't believe I don't even love T. Higgins, but I had him on the team, and I was like, well, I guess I'll put him out there because he just kept playing really, really good ball towards the end of the year, and he looked great. So, I don't know what I gotta think T. Higgins is going to get broken off to the tune of $25 million a year. So I don't think he fits either, to be completely honest. They're probably gonna, Garrett Wilson would make a lot of sense. Why? Because he's on his rookie deal. But you're gonna have to trade draft picks.
Yeah,
you're probably gonna have to give a 2 this year and a 2 next year or something like that. It's not gonna be an easy package. But you know what? Garrett Wilson would be who I'd go after for sure. Somebody who can run, or maybe I would try to get a Darius Slayton in free agency at a reduced cost. But you got to have somebody who can run. You can't. The Niners. One of the problems the Niners have is they're just too damn slow. They're slow on the perimeter on offense. They're slow on the perimeter on defense. They can't score quickly because they lack speed. They need more speed.
Well, and that was a big topic too at that press conference when you're like, hey, you said your team looks slow to Kyle. And you're like, what does that mean? Does that mean more Jacob Cowing? And he kind of backpedaled a bit, like, well, it's not really what I meant, but it's true but they've been slow all year. They don't have a burner. They don't have anyone that can stretch the field, and they really need that kind of dynamic player.
Thank you for watching this video. If you want more of this content, then check out some of these recommended videos right here on your screen. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so by going to my website, which is nicotina.net, and there are memberships available under DreArea Sports.